I drank too much at the annual meeting, played games and lost, and was forced to kiss a person of the opposite sex at the same table. I pounced on the beautiful boy sitting next to me. After the kiss, I remembered that I didn't know him. "Excuse me, who are you?" He smiled at the corner of his lips. "I'm your boss." The company held an annual meeting, and a group of people were happy, and they had to play truth or dare. If you lose, either answer the question or accept the sanctions. Our table was so hilarious, people kept adding in, and there was a handsome guy sitting next to me. He's so handsome, and his skin is whiter than mine. Especially the pair of deep dimples, which look very shy, look like a quiet child. The point is, I think he is a little familiar. Where have I seen it? I can't remember. The handsome guy misunderstood me, and if I didn't pay attention, I lost this game. The Sisters of the Wronged Seed sent out a soul torture question. Please share one of your most unforgettable crush experiences. This question made me so sad and brought back some bad memories, that I decisively chose to accept the sanctions. As a result, she smiled even more. The punishment is to kiss any person of the opposite sex at the same table. Is this a human thing? A group of people began to laugh, as if they were seriously ill. Now the pressure is on my side. I can't afford to play. Isn't it just a fierce woman pounced on a man? Whatever. Looking around, there were 3 creatures at the table that could be called the opposite sex. 2 of them are married and have children, and in order not to destroy other people's families, I have set my sights on this younger brother next to me. The head can be broken, Grover Murray can bleed, bet not to bow his head in front of him. As a young woman in the new era, there should be no fear of men. I drank a bottle of beer and stared drunkenly at the handsome face. Looking at each other, he blinked his clear peach blossom eyes, his eyes full of innocence and confusion. The next second, I touched his delicate little face, aggrieved, and tried to get him to take the initiative. "Kiss me." My brother frowned, opened my hand, and spat out 2 words with an ugly face. "No." I'm even more sad. The male god doesn't want me, and even my brother rejects me. As soon as the alcohol came up, the alcohol anesthetized my brain and dominated my body, and his handsomeness also contributed to the abuse, blinding my eyes. I pounced on a Tarzan. He tried to resist, but he didn't toss me. After a few clicks, I took a bite and said hello to him intimately. The atmosphere was awkward from the moment I kissed him. A table of people was dumbfounded, looking at me in unison, as if they were mourning for me with their eyes. The wine woke up a little. This white and tender handsome face, no matter how you look at it, it feels familiar. I hiccuped. "I think you're a little familiar. Haven't we seen each other again?" There was a slight smile in his deep pupils. "Senior, you forgot, I'm Grover Murray. When I was in school, you bullied me a lot." "Oh, remembered." I said, "It looks a little familiar. You're coming to work at our company." He nodded. "Well, just joined." "Okay, senior sister will cover you in the future." I slapped his pectoral muscles first, and then pinched his tender little face like before. "By the way, what position are you?" The child struggled to press the corners of his mouth upward, and his tone was playful. "I'm your new boss." Clear sky thunderbolt. I actually destroyed my new boss. My head buzzed, and everyone was stupid. "It's over." I was shivering, and I ran away quickly, but I couldn't pull it. When I think about what I did, I think it's over. Grover Murray is 2 worlds younger than me, and we are a club and a group. He was a very quiet child, no one played with him, and he often followed me for a while. I made it my duty to torture my brother, either by pinching my face, or by unscrewing my arm. Well, now it's good, new hatred and old hatred. Personally, I think it's completely ready to be grounded. When I woke up, the company's long-dormant melon friend group was revived. If you eat melons and eat yourself, there is no one left. I thank them for expanding my knowledge of Grover Murray. The old mother who dared to love him was the big boss of our company, and this child's descent to earth was purely to experience life. The next day I went to work. The people who ate melons were not a big deal, and anyone who saw me praised me. I was numb, and a few little sisters surrounded me and asked me how my boss felt when he kissed his mouth. After reminiscing, I reported to the masses in 1510 with a serious and responsible attitude. "Actually, that's it. It doesn't feel special." Suddenly wailing all over the field, I felt like I was surrounded by a group of lemon essences. At this time, A playful voice suddenly came from behind him. Do you want to kiss you again? It's over, he said bad things behind his back, and he was caught by the party. With this done, my future is absolutely bright. Sweating coldly, he turned around and bumped into a pair of obsidian eyes. Old boss. Grover Murray smiled and waved his hand, and the others quickly dispersed. It was just the two of us, and he took a big step forward oppressively, with a playful sly tone in his tone. Senior sister is very brave. How can you make it up to me? I took 2 steps back and stiffened. Why don't you scold me? He smiled even more, and his face swung with 2 dimples, like a rich wine. Okay. I'll just tell you, it's good for him, and he agrees to be crunchy, and it seems that this brother should not stay for a long time. You don't know me, I'm just addicted. Grover Murray nodded. Indeed, if you don't understand, I want to scold you, and if I do, I might want to beat you. Can't talk about him? Then you can say it. His eyes rolled. I want a coconut latte. I understood in seconds. Okay boss, I'll arrange it now. With that, I turned around to run. Wait. He stopped me, took out his phone, and called up the Weshit QR code. Add me Weshit, 1 cup per person in the office, I'll treat you. I grimaced and asked, mine? He was stunned for a moment, probably never seen such a brazen person, and rubbed his eyebrows. Yes. In addition to coffee, you can buy yourself a small cake, and I will treat you too. Long live the boss. I thought to myself. The corners of his lips twitched. It's nothing, you have the strength to cry when you're full. Grover Murray's arrogant and domineering appearance has already made a group of Yan dogs howl, and this wave of operation is directly full. When the coffee arrived, I went to bring him coffee, walked to the office door, and was about to knock on the door, when suddenly a loud slap sounded from inside. I was shocked. Grover Murray's voice followed. I don't agree anyway. By the way, I'm going to hire an assistant, you just need to know that. Before I could calm down, the door suddenly opened, and a middle-aged woman dressed in grace walked out with a black face. I was shocked and greeted me in fear. Dong. Chairman of the board. Her face was very bad, her expression was a little scary, she glanced at me from above, ignored me, and walked away. I felt a chill down my spine, hesitated for a few seconds, and knocked on the door. Grover Murray looked up, and there was a shocking red mark on his white cheek. Under the thick black eyebrows, the eyes seemed to be covered by shadows, and there is no emotion poured out in the dark eyes. The corners of his mouth were a little swollen, and when he saw me, he hooked his lips, and he was a little fragile. I felt a little embarrassed, but he didn't care at all, wiped the corners of his mouth, and said in a playful tone, "What are you looking for me?" "Oh, your coffee." I knew too much, and I was afraid of being killed, so I put down my coffee and ran away. Back at the workstation, before the butt was hot, a scream sounded in the office area. Looking up, Grover Murray slipped out of nowhere. I pretended not to see it, lowered my head and began to unpack the cake box. No matter how handsome my brother is, it's not as important as cooking. When I opened the cake, it was my favorite Black Forest cake, which I chewed quietly and tasted softly. At this moment, he suddenly slipped up to me, and without hurrying away, he was grinding beside me. I'm numb. It was too much of a problem for me to play. He picked up the poplar nectar on my table. I've said I'm in for a treat. Why don't you order an oversized one? I don't like oversized. I don't have a brain to speak. After saying that, he couldn't help but snort. He hooked his lips and smiled, and the 2 dimples on the side of his mouth spread out, handsome and cute, especially the shocking red at the corner of my lips, adding a touch of fragile temperament. I pity my brother. After a brief look at each other, my face was a little red, and I wanted to hide my embarrassment by eating a bite of cake. I just picked up a small cake, but it didn't reach my mouth yet. Grover Murray suddenly leaned down, and a handsome face approached. I was stunned for a moment. After a slow beat, I watched him eat the cake with a shy face. My workstation was in the back of the last row, and the 2 sisters sitting next to me were not there at this time, and he grabbed the cake, and I didn't even have a witness. What's worse than that is, he was standing on the side, his tall figure just blocking me, and from someone else's point of view, it looked like I was feeding him. The kid snatched my cake, not satisfied, raised his eyebrows, and said in a sly tone, "It's delicious, order me another one." He turned around leisurely and walked away. However, the office is as quiet as a chicken. The friends showed the essence of the people who eat melons, and their eyes were meaningful. The office is ostensibly orderly, and the small group has long been fried. You two have more melons on the vine than last night. Grover Murray actually asked you to feed him cake. How do you feel about the interview? I'm numb. Sisters, eat melons or don't believe in melons. Civilized you, me and him. I was just about to refute 2 sentences, when a message suddenly popped up in the group, stinging my eyes. You don't know. Grover Murray has a girlfriend. The sweetness of the new melon diverted some of the firepower for me. Is there such a thing? Stretch on and on. Grover Murray's girlfriend is the daughter of a major client of our company, and I listen to his company. I've heard that the 2 of them are having an awkward relationship. The chairman and Grover Murray got angry about this and slapped him. Originally. No wonder. If I stay up until the end of work, others are still pretending to be positive, and I rush out when I get to the point. Just passing by his office, the door just opened. He was carrying a coat in his hand, hanging his son, and he seemed to be ready to leave. Don't forget that a customer will come to inspect the factory tomorrow, and you have to go too. I haven't forgotten this. It was already booked, but he suddenly parachuted in, and the person in charge was replaced by him. Okay, let's go together. I'll drive you. No need. I live far away. Then I'll have to send you even more. It's too hard to squeeze the subway. The sedan sped away. Grover Murray drove earnestly, the afterglow of the setting sun flickering like fireworks in his fever. I stole a few glances at him. His thick eyebrows were raised languidly, and a large shadow swept under the long, slightly curled lashes. The scenery outside the car recedes rapidly, and the memory gradually becomes trance-like. When he was in college, he was very gentle, and he would blush when he talked to a few more words with girls. So why did he now become like he didn't know which mental hospital he ran out of? What do you eat at night? He smiled at the corners of his mouth, and took the initiative to open the topic. I glanced at the well-grown face in the mirror, and sighed silently. Don't eat, lose weight. He glanced at me while waiting for the red light. It's very well proportioned, no need to reduce it. That's probably the most pleasant quote I've heard this year. You don't know how many pounds I have. If you do, you definitely won't say that. Heroes don't ask where they come from, and girls don't ask about caddies. All right. He was finally normal in my eyes. I didn't know what to say, but a phone call from my roommate saved me from fire and water. Amelia, my boyfriend is coming over in the evening. Don't come back before 9 o'clock in the evening. Ha 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 ha. That's fine. Grover Murray looked at me faintly. Where are you going? I sighed. There's a fast food restaurant not far ahead. You can just put it down for me. Grover Murray's brow furrowed into 2 bows, and the corners of his lips furrowed. Come with me. Where to? You'll know when you get there. Grover Murray took me to a chain bar that I hadn't been to in a long time. He didn't order any alcohol, just drinks and snacks. My favorite taco, grilled chicken, and burgers. A whole set of dishes was pushed in front of me by him, and his eyes were deep. I remember that these are your favorite foods. Eat them quickly. I was reminded of my senior year. At that time, I was close to graduation and had nothing to do all day, often going to the bar with my little sister to spend time. It's not a lot of fun, because the male god I have a crush on sings in a bar, so I often come to the scene to cheer, occasionally pulling Grover Murray around. I can't imagine that this kid actually remembers what I like to eat. His slightly slouched chuckle brought me back to my senses. Something that makes you sad. I gave him a blank look. Come on, young people cry for love, and I will only cry for poverty now. As soon as the words fell, a slender, white hand suddenly stretched out. A strand of messy hair on his lips was calmly pinned behind his ears. Eat slowly. Your hair almost hit your mouth. Oh. I continued to bow my head and cook. And then a few people came in. They knew Grover Murray, and they all came over. They looked me up and down with melon-eating eyes. I and him melon after melon. Chaotic melon gradually became charming. I was numb. The children finally couldn't help it, and gathered around Grover Murray to ask this and that. How did Grover Murray get here today? This. You have to call your sister-in-law, Pandora Gregory. It's time for you to meet like this, isn't it? The name Pandora Gregory made me want to eat melons as well. When he turned his eyes, he found that he had a cold face, dangerous eyes, and a low voice in a cold voice. Are you bothered? It's okay to go. The next moment, several big boys ran away in a panic. It can also be guessed from the tone of these boys that this girl named Pandora Gregory must have a complicated relationship with him. I'm afraid of a misunderstanding, and I don't want to touch his brow. I'm full. Why don't we go? Grover Murray raised an eyebrow, revealing my intentions. Afraid of bumping into it, sort of. Why should I stay? Watch your love. Grover Murray pursed his lips, rolled his eyes, and smiled handsomely. It's okay to go now, but Senior sister has to promise me one condition. The kid has now learned to negotiate terms. I thought about it. I'm not going to sell my body. He laughed angrily, his tone sly. Sister, you're too confident. My fists are hard, but it's really inconvenient for us to scold him in our relationship now. The corners of his lips twitched, and he continued, but I do have the capital of self-confidence. All right, I'm so much more comfortable. How's that going to work? He raised an eyebrow. Why don't you be my assistant? Defenseless, I squirted a mouthful of Coke onto the ground. Immediately, his eyes turned white, and he handed over a few tissues, hurriedly wiped his mouth clean, digested the news, and it took a few seconds to react. Don't you have an assistant? As I spoke, I finished my drink, and he quietly pushed the cup he hadn't drunk in front of me. Sophia is pregnant. She's weak, and I want her to take an early vacation. I'm a little entangled. Being an assistant to the boss is a good errand that many people can't ask for, but I've never done it. I'm afraid I can't do it myself. You make me think about it. Grover Murray didn't force it, chuckling a few times. It's okay. You think slowly. I took a few sips of juice, but my stomach couldn't hold up. Can I go this time? Grover Murray glanced at his watch and nodded. It's almost time to go back now. Do you want to pack something and bring it back? I frowned. In his heart, how can I eat? He chuckled. Don't get me wrong. I mean to bring some supper back to your roommate. I couldn't have even eaten it, but Grover Murray had already called the waiter and packed a sea, land and air platter. After a delay in packing, Grover Murray took the bag and stood up. Behind him, a soft voice suddenly sounded. Grover Murray. You're too. Before the words fell, behind him, a tall and slender beautiful girl appeared. She is really good looking, with long maroon curly hair, willow eyes, and a very good temperament. Those charming willow eyes, up and down sweeping me up and down, full of inquiry. I felt a sense of foreboding. Grover Murray frowned, turned around slowly, and his voice dropped to -°C. Pandora Gregory, you're here too. The girl nodded wildly. Her eyes changed, and stars appeared in her eyes. Well, it's a friend's birthday. This is a friend. I breathed a sigh of relief. The kid's answer was so-so. As a result, he may feel that the summary is not comprehensive, and a few words pop out of his mouth. A very important friend. Pandora Gregory. Thank you. These words are just over when they are hidden in their hearts, and there is no need to say them. Well, now, the girl's face turned red, and she bit her lip, and she was at a loss for what to do. I forced a smile and tried to make a round, but Grover Murray stood up and popped out two words like a disappointment. Gone. I had this intention, and hurriedly stood up. Perhaps the desire to survive was too strong, and I didn't look at my feet, and stepped on the Coke spilled on the ground. The high heels slipped out, and the whole person was unsteady on his feet. Flashing light. A big strong hand grabbed my arm in time. By inertia, I leaned on his shoulder. It all happened so fast that I said goodbye to Pandora Gregory in a gesture of show affection. I don't want to go. I have the heart to explain, but Grover Murray wouldn't give me the chance. He put his arm around me, and dragged me out like a kidnapping. Pandora Gregory looked at her with a wry, and I couldn't help it. I sat in the passenger seat, and the flickering lights continued to intertwine from his face, as if dawn and dusk were playing freely, and he was willing to use his arrogant appearance as a foil. Would you like to explain? I boldly seek verification and be cautious of temptation. Grover Murray shook his head. No. Oh. I tactically chose to shut up. The two of them fought at the head of the bed, and the bed was reconciled. Maybe in a few days, But when I think of Pandora Gregory, my heart is sour. She looked no younger than me, and was carrying a Chanel bag, and I only deserved to have a meme. From head to toe, I lost across the board. But anyone who is a normal person knows how to choose. In a distraction, the car was parked outside the neighborhood where I lived. Grover Murray didn't rush to open the door, and said to me in a warm voice, "You ask your roommate first. Are you done?" Seeing my puzzled look, he raised his eyebrows. "I'm afraid his boyfriend hasn't left. You are waiting downstairs." A word to wake up the dreamer. Rushed upstairs. In case she blocked the good things of the dog-headed girlfriend, she had to fight with me. After making sure it was safe, I said goodbye to Grover Murray, and was about to get out of the car when he suddenly stopped me. I turned my head and crashed into a pair of obsidian eyes. His gaze crystal clear and reminded me of the autumn sky at school. "What's the matter with calling me?" He smiled, his eyes burning. "The factory is too far away. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. The warehouse I'm going to tomorrow is a bit of a struggle for me to go alone. In the morning rush hour, an hour and a half on the subway. You can squeeze back a fart on the car, and no matter how much perfume you spray, you can't cover the smell of leak boxes." So I said yes to Grover Murray. But tonight, Grover Murray's words struck a subtle change in my heart. This kid was very withdrawn in school, following my ass all day, and I liked to play tricks on him when I had nothing to do. I used to be so talkative as a child, but now I am stunned when I speak, and I don't play cards according to common sense. The position of assistant manager is so rare that even if you drive an excavator and line up, it won't be my turn. I don't know what this kid is thinking. Because of this, I managed to lose sleep, and I got up in a daze in the morning, washed my hair and put on makeup. Then, with a black eye under his eyes, he got into Grover Murray's car. As soon as he got in the car, he was greeted with a concerned gaze. "Didn't you sleep well last night? Then you squint for a while, and I'll call you when it's time." As he spoke, he took 2 grocery bags from the back seat, and stuffed them into my arms. "Breakfast. Eat something when you're hungry." I opened them separately, and saw that he had prepared them very well, including coffee, croissants, and fruit cups, all of which I love to eat. I can skip sleep, but I can't skip a meal. After eating, I saw the corners of Grover Murray's mouth twitch. Grover Murray smiled wryly and answered the question. "Senpai, you ate my share too." "All right." My nimble toes have already carved out a lanolin maze. I snorted and tried to diffuse the embarrassment with fake sleep. I didn't sleep much last night, and I was full of food just now, and I really fell asleep. Wake up. The car was parked outside the factory. Grover Murray wasn't there, but the air conditioning was turned to a comfortable temperature, and I had an extra coat of his on me. Take a look at the table. I'll go. Slept. The dog's life is at rest. I crawled to the factory with a roll, and Grover Murray was accompanying the customer on a tour. He disguised himself very well, chatted and laughed with customers, and did not have the usual hanging. As I got closer, I straightened my clothes and walked over generously. "I'm sorry." In the crowd, I suddenly saw a familiar slender figure, and the voice stopped abruptly. The whole person was directly stunned. Nina Julius. I didn't expect that the senior who had a crush back then would now be my father. He was stunned for a moment, bowed his head lightly at me, and said softly, "Little sister, I haven't seen you for a long time." I nodded, successfully hiding my shock with a professional smirk. Back then, I had a crush on him and wrote love letters, but this crush ended in nothing. Grover Murray looked solemn and had an emotion on his face that I couldn't tell, but I'm sure he recognized Nina Julius early on. The whole process of the factory inspection, I was absent-minded. I always felt Grover Murray's eyes spinning around me, but every time I looked at him, his gaze fell elsewhere. After the event, according to international practice, there had to be the next one, so the group went to the restaurant in a big way. Coincidentally, Nina Julius sat across from me, and I bowed my head to avoid staring at me. I inspected the factory. Sleepy King, ate lightning wolf, didn't fight for him face at work, and realized it in dry rice. After drinking and having fun, Party A's father suddenly said that he wanted to sing, so he was full of wine and food and went to KTV. In the afternoon, A group of people went to sing KTV, and there was no one left. Nina Julius chuckled and asked me, "Let's go with you. It's been a few years. Let's talk about it. The feeling of heartbeat that I used to feel is gone, but the atmosphere is in place, and it is a bit of a disappointment not to go." So I readily agreed. "I'll go too." Grover Murray's voice rang out coldly. I suddenly shouted that he had a meeting in the afternoon, and kindly proposed, "You have a meeting at 3 p.m. He didn't bother to lift his eyelids. Pushed. Grover Murray stared at me earnestly. "I have to follow you. I'll go where you go." He paused. Just like it was back then. My heart beats faster. In a trance, my teenager returned. I would have known that listening to them sing would feel like they were facing a great enemy, and I wouldn't have come to kill them. The lungs of several gold owners are really large, and as soon as they opened their mouths, ghosts and wolves howled in the private room, and the wind was loud. I'm numb. Grover Murray and Nina Julius sandwiched me between left and right male. The two of them were one ice and one fire. Nina Julu and the others were clearly arranged by him, and Grover Murray curled up in the corner and played with his phone. Nina Julius handed me a microphone and said softly, "Sister, let's sing a song together." I subconsciously glanced at Grover Murray, who didn't seem to hear and didn't look up. I don't know why, but I actually care a little bit about his feelings. Seeing that he didn't react, I boldly took the microphone. Nina Julius sang well at that time. It was recognized by the whole school. Only the school had a party. He must be the finale. I sang averagely, sang children's songs out of tune, all by him led and barely sang. At this moment, a customer walked up to me with a shiny face. "Beauty and I will sing a song." I refused in my heart, but I could only force myself to agree to this occasion. "Singing is okay." As soon as he roared, he grabbed my noble little hand. "I'm not happy about that. Sing and sing. Why are you holding my hand?" I endured, and pulled my hand out without leaving a trace, and he didn't know what to do, like a stubborn donkey, and stretched out his paws again. The atmosphere was a little awkward, and Nina Julius was a little embarrassed. President Vincent, the greasy man, changed his face and his eyes twitched. "Hey, Nina Julius, what do you mean?" Nina Julius' arm stiffened, and the hand on his arm hung limply. He silently took a step back, lowered his head, and stopped looking at me. "Beauty, just sing a song. You won't lose face, right? You haven't audited the factory yet." The board lifted its face and tried to touch my little hand again. I was about to break free when someone grabbed me by the collar and carried me to the back. When I looked back, I bumped into a pair of burning eyes. Grover Murray dragged me behind him, and with that click, my heart beat 2 beats faster. Party A's father was not happy. His face drooped like a bull. "Grover Murray, what do you mean by that?" Grover Murray raised a hand and said in a playful tone, "See my hand. My slap fits the shape of your face." Humph! Smack! A crisp slap suddenly sounded. Everyone was stunned, and the atmosphere in the private room suddenly dropped below zero. The guy covered his face and took a moment to react. "Grover Murray, you're crazy," Grover Murray said indifferently. "Can you touch her again?" After saying that, he grabbed my hand, turned around and left, leaving the people in the private room looking at each other. I was dragged into the car by him, and that's when I realized that he had been holding my hand. Combined with the scene that protected me just now, my heart beat like thunder, and the roots of my ears burned red. The moment he let go of his hand, Grover Murray was back in his face. His gaze fell on my face, and the corners of his mouth lifted. "Senior sister is actually blushing. I didn't even kiss me at the annual meeting." "All right. What are you saying now?" He drove me back, and I stole a few glances at him, but finally I couldn't hold back. "What about today?" "It won't affect the review, right?" Grover Murray raised an eyebrow. "You don't have to worry about the handsome guys." After a pause, he asked, "If I don't care, will you just let him touch your hand?" "How is that possible? You haven't even touched it, brother." I breathed a sigh of relief. "But just deal with the singing. My sister has been in the workplace for so long, and the apology is the best." Grover Murray frowned. His tone was light. "Why are you wronged and pretending to be generous? Do you wrong yourself to make others happy?" I was stunned. He has always been regarded by me as a little child, and unconsciously, The boy who was protected by me at the beginning has been able to shelter me from the wind and rain. I was always comforted that the child had grown up, but in fact, I thought too much. Before getting out of the car, his words made me sigh in vain. He suddenly stopped me. Senior sister, there's something you just said wrong. I turned around, and he suddenly smiled. I already touched your hand. Grover Murray was furious at me, and it quickly spread throughout the company. My colleagues' attitude towards me changed dramatically, and everyone who saw me smiled at me, but I wasn't happy at all. Because of me, the factory inspection was yellow, and I wanted to apologize to him, but he asked me to run errands to get him a lat. It's not far away, but it's hard to find a thief. In the summer, I walked through the streets and took off my makeup. When I returned to the office on my last day, I heard a thunderbolt in the clear sky. Just now, Grover Murray and his old mother arrived, and the two of them closed the door and argued, loud as if there were 2 machine guns in the office. Just a few minutes earlier, his old mother had left in a fit of rage, perfect for passing me by. I thought of a possibility, ignored the onlookers, and walked straight to his office. Grover Murray's eyes lit up when he saw me, as if nothing had happened. You're back. I'm dying of thirst. My coconut lat. The more he did this, the more uncomfortable I became, holding the watermelon lat that I was thinking about, and I had no appetite at all. After a few seconds of silence, I couldn't help but speak. The chairman came just now. Grover Murray sniped his straw. Well, here, talk to me about yesterday. Discuss. That's what you call a discussion. I didn't expose him. I was silent for a long time, and sighed. Why don't I intercede with Nina Julius? Grover Murray reacted like he stepped on the door. What are you looking for him? Don't look for him. I can handle it. I didn't expect him to react so much, so I was stunned and nodded. He breathed a sigh of relief, hooked the corners of his lips, and said with a smile, if the senior sister doesn't want to go, she will agree to be my assistant. I forgot about it, but I didn't expect him to forget it. The company is eating me and his melons. I don't think it's good to agree at this time. I wanted to refuse, but the words came to my lips, but was forced back by his burning eyes. Okay. Seeing that I agreed, Grover Murray was very happy, and the corners of his tight lips rose wildly. Okay, then you wait a few days. I have to go through the process of personal changes. He shifted his words. By the way, do you have time at night? I was about to say yes, but on second thought, I was going to ask Nina Julius out to intercede. Not tonight. One of my girlfriends has a birthday. The corners of Grover Murray's mouth sank as he looked a little lost, and I couldn't help but ask, what's wrong at night? He stopped talking. Oh, no, you go. Stared at Nina Julius' Weshit profile picture, hesitated for a long time, and mustered up the courage of his life to send him a sincere invitation. He quickly said yes and asked me to meet at 7 p.m. at the bar where he used to work. It was the same house where Alva Murray accompanied me last time. After meeting, he smiled and pushed beer and snacks in front of me. I was asked out today for the sake of yesterday's incident. I looked at him and remembered that yesterday he had chosen the opposite of Grover Murray, and instead of feeling any loss, I felt an indescribable sense of relief. The handsome face in front of me can't bring me any lethality. Grover Murray, you know that kid a little rushed. Can you help me intercede? Nina Julius smiled wryly, a little embarrassed. Our leader is very angry. Why don't you let him apologize? I waved my hand again and again, but I still said goodbye. Why don't I go? I asked tentatively. Nina Julius looked at me in silence. The lights were dim. His face was bright and dark, and there was no emotion. It's not good for you to go. You didn't hit it. He looked at me in astonishment, his tone low. This has something to do with me. If it really doesn't work, I'll go and apologize. It's okay to scold me for 2 sentences. Ha ha ha. This is Grover Murray's first order since taking office, and there is no room for failure. He looked at me in a daze, his eyes like the dark night outside the window, unusually deep. After a few seconds of silence, he suddenly sighed. All right, I'll try it and do my best. I folded my hands together. Thank you, brother. Nina Julius couldn't help but smile bitterly with a hint of helplessness in her eyes. When did you see me like this? I was stunned. Since when? I can't even tell. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Nina Julia sighed, her expression suddenly a little strange, and she hesitated to speak. Yesterday, you don't blame me, do you? I hurriedly waved my hand, and Nina Julia's face improved. After a while, I said goodbye to him, and walked out of the bar together, and Nina Julius whispered, my car is on the side of the road, let's take you back. I smiled and refused. Nina Julius didn't force it, said hello and left. I was about to leave, when my eyes glanced at me, and suddenly I saw a familiar figure. As soon as I looked up, my heart fluttered, and Grover Murray was standing across the street. He and I only looked at each other across the road, and the boys from last time were next to them. The vehicles shuttled endlessly, and his face disappeared from time to time. I'm numb. Grover Murray had a tense face, a serious expression, red eyes, and a bit of alcohol on his body. Only then did I realize that they were all red-faced, and it seemed that this was the second scene. He didn't say anything, but the boys blew up. Sister-in-law, why are you here? Grover Murray said you weren't coming today. In the midst of the gossip, I noticed that the boy next to him was holding a cake in his arms and asked casually, which of you has a birthday? Me. Grover Murray lazily lowered his eyes. I was stunned for a few seconds, remembering the way he wanted to talk at work, and it turned out that he wanted to talk to me about this. Sister-in-law, let's go in and have a drink together, the boy holding the cake said. I smiled reluctantly. I dared to stay, but I couldn't stop their enthusiasm, and in the end it was Grover Murray who helped me out. Say less. Shocking the children. Grover Murray looked down and pulled out his phone. I'll send you back. The boys were shocked. Big brother, what should we do then? Grover Murray frowned. You guys drink first. I'll be back in a minute. I also thought it was too grand, so I quickly refused. It's okay. Don't delay your play. Heh. He looked up, his eyes shining. Do you still want full attendance? It's not impossible. Grover Murray called a JL8 van, and he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes, and the atmosphere in the car was eerily quiet. This kid usually talks a lot, but suddenly it's so quiet. I'm a little uncomfortable. I mustered up the courage of my life to speak up and try to explain. I asked Nina Julius today to save the project. He bowed his head slightly. I know. After a pause, he added, I said, I'll take care of this. What are you going to do? Grover Murray slowly opened his eyes, glanced sideways at me, blinked his long eyelashes, and swept a shadow over his eyes. They've procured all the ingredients, and tons of ingredients have been pulled into our factory. Are they still pulling them away? Grover Murray pursed his lips suddenly, smiling disdainfully. They're ready to go. So they're going to look for a factory to produce again, and see if they can catch up with the progress. I looked at him incredulously. Really? It's a customer I can't ask for on tiptoe. Grover Murray turned, his gaze softer than the night sky, and I almost fell into it. Senpai. Probably his tone was too gentle, and my heart beat a few beats faster inexplicably. Heh. Suddenly, he leaned over, watching that handsome face approach. My mind went blank. His face stopped a few centimeters away from me, and whispered in my ear, you don't need to stand on tiptoe, I'll bend over for you. I never thought Grover Murray would say such sultry things. He gave me the impression that he had been moving like epilepsy, switching back and forth in silence like paralysis, and it turned out that he could also be gentle and unpresentable. The van stopped outside the gate of the complex. I got out of the car and turned around. Why did he come down too? The van drove away slowly, and I was confused. Why don't you go back? Grover Murray's eyes were drunk, and he chuckled with his lips hooked. I watched you enter the unit. I'll go again. A strange emotion arose in my heart. He smiled. You go up, rest early. I stared at him for a moment, and he raised an eyebrow. It's really okay, if you don't go up again. You just can't bear me. I'm numb. Instructed him a few words, turned around 3 times, and turned upstairs. Tonight, my girlfriend went to my boyfriend's, and I was alone at home, and after taking a shower, I was stuck on the sofa in a daze, remembering that today is Grover Murray's birthday. His lost eyes in the afternoon made me feel sorry, so I sent him a happy birthday wish-it message. Grover Murray's second reply, senior sister doesn't even know my birthday. It's very sad. Me, isn't your birthday the 9th day of April? Grover Murray, sister. People have a solar calendar now. All right. After a pause, I quickly typed, the birthday present will be made up to you tomorrow. He began to be coquettish. Grover Murray, not today. Che. I was speechless. This kid asked so much. I pondered and pondered. So I replied like this. Me, this means that you are gone. Or the senior sister will definitely invite you upstairs and wish you a happy birthday in person. Grover Murray, I'll come up now. Can anyone tell me why he doesn't come home in the middle of the night? Now a young and handsome young man, so without a sense of self-protection. On a big night, I was a little nervous to let a handsome young man come to the house. He is so handsome. We all drank again. I am famous for my bad wine. Everyone dares to kiss him. This time it is just the two of us. I am really afraid that I will go on the road of crime. Grover Murray went upstairs and looked at me with a sly look. Where's my gift? Senior, in the middle of the night. Where can I find a gift for him? What do you want? Grover Murray raised an eyebrow and chuckled under his breath. Is it anything I want? Oh, I'd like to hear what shameless demands this kid can make. Senior sister, I want to stay tonight. I was startled and took 2 steps back. Why don't you go back to your house? He rubbed his eyebrows and sighed. I drank too much, and I lost my keys and wallet. I looked at him carefully for a long time, and I couldn't tell the truth from the fake for a while. Okay, it's not easy for this kid to get close to me. He was finally happy, like a loose husky. Then I'll go take a shower first. Grover Murray. He went to take a shower, and I curled up on the couch to pass the time watching a movie, my eyes fixed on the actor's seductive six-pack abs on TV, and my mind was Grover Murray. Frankly, from the moment he stood up for me, I started to re-examine how I felt about him. In the past, I really only regarded him as a younger brother, but now I suddenly have a feeling of affection for him, and it is getting stronger and stronger. The sound of the door pushing me back to reality, I subconsciously glanced at him, and my eyes suddenly got stuck on his six-pack abs, which were worse than those on TV, and I couldn't pull them out. With just a quick glance, I was completely fallen. His upper body was naked. He didn't have to pick a good figure, and his six-pack abs were clearly visible, and I was suddenly not calm. Why don't you wear a shirt? He walked towards me on his long legs, and every step seemed to jump on my heart. My clothes smell of alcohol, and I'm uncomfortable to wear. He sat down across from me, and when he saw the male star with sharp abs on TV, he pouted for a moment, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Senpai used to like this. My little face flushed, and I hurriedly got up. I'll go get you a t-shirt, blamed his abdominal muscles for being too good, and in a hurry, my feet slipped, and the whole person didn't stand well, so I fell directly on his lap. I touched his forehead, and his eyelashes trembled slightly, sweeping over my face like feathers. Looking at each other, his eyes were like a red-hot soldering iron, and they were amazingly hot. I hurriedly stood up with his abs on my feet, and ran back to the room to rummage through my clothes. Grover Murray put on the t-shirt I threw at him, and my abs were covered by the clothes, and I suddenly felt a little regretful in my heart. He frowned, and his tone was a little complicated. How can you have men's clothes in your house? I was stunned. A lot of girls like to wear loose t-shirts when they sleep. It's called boyfriend style. Grover Murray's tight lip line suddenly rose, and he tugged at his neckline and sniffed. Senior sister's clothes smell so good. They smell so good. He looks so handsome and speaks so well. Who can withstand this? The night tonight and he are very gentle. I am afraid that if I can't control it, I will pounce on the man, and I dare not think about the consequences. He blinked his watery peach blossom eyes, and his eyes seemed to be drunk. Senior sister, where do I sleep tonight? This question is very good. My bed is quite big. It is no problem to lie for 2 people. Phew, what kind of waste is all I have in my head? You sleep in my room tonight, and I sleep in my girlfriend's room. He nodded, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Senior sister, don't worry, I will lock the door at night. You don't have to worry about not being able to handle it. I really didn't want to talk to this person anymore, so I waved my hand. It's time to sleep. Good night. When I got to the door, he suddenly stopped me. He stared at me, his obsidian eyes shining brightly. Senpai, where's my gift? I'll give you tomorrow. The corners of his lips twitched. No, I want it now. After speaking, he suddenly dragged me. I was not prepared for anything, and I was suddenly hugged by him into his arms. I'm stupid. A youthful and flamboyant breath came to my face, and my newly calm heart was pounding wildly. I was firmly held in his arms, and a sense of security that I had never felt before. I unexpectedly did not push him away. Grover Murray just hugged me, but I easily fell into his arms. This night, I managed to lose sleep. My mind was full of him, and when I woke up the next day, this guy woke up earlier than me. I walked into the living room in a daze, where he was meticulously grooming his hair in front of the mirror. Senpai, morning. He smiled naturally, as if he had forgotten what he had done last night. I frowned. Why did you get up so early? I have to appoint you as my assistant at today's convention. Got a straight. He paused, turned his head to look at me, hooked the corners of his lips, and smiled playfully. The bags under my eyes are a little heavy. Got insomnia last night. I can't stop. I want to make my mind faint. I want to. I can't take it anymore. Shut up. Only then did he obediently shut up and smiled. Hurry up and wash up. I've already bought breakfast. Let's eat it in the car. The kid was a little poor, but very attentive, and I had no intention of saying that I was madly obsessed with the buns that were laid downstairs in the morning, and Grover Murray bought them for me when he got up early in the morning, and didn't mind that I smoked his car to the smell of leeks. He was in a good mood today, humming all the time, and when everyone arrived, he sent his old mother in place, and the meeting could begin. His mother was the last to arrive, and behind her, followed by a girl with a familiar face. When Grover Murray saw her, his eyebrows furrowed, and he looked a little dazed. She passed by me, her eyes full of hostility. I thought and thought about it. My head buzzed, and I finally remembered who she was. Pandora Gregory. Why did she come too? The town hall meeting was held as normal, and Pandora Gregory kept staring at me with a majestic look in her eyes during the meeting. I don't understand what she's proud of. When it came to personnel changes, Grover Murray's mother cleared her throat and spoke. In addition, the new assistant general manager has been elected. The corners of Grover Murray's mouth curled up. She paused, fixed her eyes on me, and said word by word, Pandora Gregory. Thunderbolt in the clear sky. I was stunned for a moment, and Pandora Gregory smiled triumphantly. I'm a little unhappy, but this position is dispensable for me. But Grover Murray quit. His face was full of anger. He didn't give the two of them any face, and left on the spot. The atmosphere suddenly fell into awkwardness. His mother's air pressure was too low, and no one dared to make a mistake. So she insisted until the meeting ended, and the group suddenly turned on the melon-eating mode. The melon-eating crowd only knew that Grover Murray was dissatisfied with his mother's arrangement, but no one knew that Grover Murray had originally arranged me. I was afraid that my house would collapse, and my style was very low-key, so a WeChat message came in, and I opened it to see that it was from Grover Murray. I'm sorry for 3 words. When I saw these 3 words, I didn't feel it in my heart, and it wasn't his fault that I made it like this. I comforted him a few words, and told him not to take it to heart. It doesn't matter if he helps me or not, as long as he doesn't think about it. After replying to the message, there was suddenly a pair of high heels in front of me. When I looked up, I saw a pair of smiling willow eyes. I was stunned for a moment. I had a different business scope from her, and it seemed that there was nothing to say. Pandora Gregory looked at me with a smile and was yin and yang as soon as she opened her mouth. Sister, I'm sorry this time. She made such a fuss, and the people who ate melons all looked over here. I ignored her. I'm busy if you're not busy. She smiled in the tea. What about later? I'm Assistant Grover Murray, so if there's anything you want to hand over, just give it to me. I frowned, and rolling my eyes wasn't enough. Whom do you have to say this? She sneered and declared her sovereignty. Oh yes, Grover Murray will have a meeting in a while, and I'll accompany him to the meeting first. I'm too lazy to bother with her. Now it's really a mental workout in the last class. I didn't say anything when I was shady, and Pandora Gregory kept blocking me. Our company has no internal drive, only involution. And Pandora Gregory has only been here for a few days, and she has made a stumbling block for me. Today the company has a big customer, VIPP, and Grover Murray and I are in charge of receiving her. Grover Murray was improvised by the meeting, and told me to come over and say hello. As soon as I reached the door, the thick green tea sound of Pandora Gregory sounded from behind. She came over with a small, delicately wrapped cake and handed it to me. This customer likes to eat this flavor of cake the most, and every time he comes, he has to prepare it, so you can bring it in. I didn't think much of it. I reached out and took it. As I turned around, I subconsciously glanced at her. Coincidentally, a sneer appeared on the corner of her mouth. I thought I was dazzled, so I didn't think much of it, and went in with the cake. The customer was very happy, but as soon as I opened the cake, her face changed dramatically. I'm allergic to mangoes, and you're trying to kill me by letting me eat mango pudding. I'm a big customer of your company, and I never eat mangoes, don't you know? New here. I see. It's Pandora Gregory. Who is the slut who hurt me? She absolutely knew that customers couldn't eat mangoes, so she deliberately asked me to send them in, which was really easy to hide, and it was difficult to prevent it. I resisted my anger and made it my duty to appease the client, but the more she spoke, the more agitated she became, pointing at me and shouting, "Do you know who I am? I'm going to take 1/3 of your company's annual performance by myself, and I don't want to fuck off." I didn't want to trouble Grover Murray at first, but I couldn't bear it when she came back with a quintessence of the country. Hitting people doesn't slap their faces, scolding people doesn't scold their mothers, and they don't understand the rules of the rivers and lakes. I frowned. "Can you speak properly?" She smiled disdainfully. "Who are you? What's wrong with me scolding you? I let your boss fire you, and he will never dare to protect you." Yes, you're so expensive. No wonder the price of pork has risen." She was stunned for a moment. "You scolded me." "The pig I scolded." Her lips turned purple with anger, and she took out her phone tremblingly. "Okay, you wait. I'll call your boss now." I had already gotten out and took a big bite of the mango pudding. "Okay, you can fight. I'll wait." When Grover Murray arrived, I happened to finish the mango pudding. He glanced at the scene. His eyes fell on my face, and he frowned subconsciously. I chuckled in my heart. It looked like he was going to abandon me. Although I understand this approach, this person is him, and I feel an irrepressible grievance in my heart. As soon as the client saw Grover Murray's ungodly appearance, his attitude changed sharply, and Pear Blossom complained to me, "Grover Murray, Auntie grew up watching you. She just scolded me for being a pig. You have to fire her, or I won't be able to continue to cooperate." Grover Murray, with a faint expression, walked up to me on his long legs, and suddenly raised his hand. I was afraid that he would hit me, so I subconsciously closed my eyes. His hand brushed over my mouth. I was stunned, and when I opened my eyes, he had a slice of mango jam on his fingertips. The corners of his lips lifted, and his tone was extremely gentle. "You have sauce on the side of your mouth. I'll help you wipe it off." My heart beat wildly a few times. The customer was angry. "Grover Murray, what do you mean? If you don't fire her, I won't cooperate with you." Grover Murray turned around, his voice grim. "Then I won't send it." Grover Murray's reaction surprised me. I was moved and guilty in my heart, looking at his obsidian eyes and smiling reluctantly. "I'm messing with you again, but trust me, I didn't prepare this cake." Grover Murray nodded, touched my hair, and his voice was warm. "I believe in you." I felt like I had been hit by something, and if I had just had a crush on him before, now I'm completely fallen. Grover Murray's lips twitched. "You don't have to worry about this. I'm here." Well, he's completely flooded in my heart. The sentence, "with me, although not as emotional as I love you, there is an inexplicable sense of security." He gently scratched my nose, and said in a doting tone, "All right, you're angry. You've eaten the cake, and it's time for us to go out." I nodded and walked out after him. There was such a big commotion just now, and the door was already full of people watching the excitement. Pandora Gregory walked over quickly, and said to Grover Murray crisply, "She offended our big customer this time, and if she didn't fire her, this order would definitely be lost." Grover Murray nodded, but didn't speak. She started blowing the wind in her ears again, and I ran back to work, poured a glass of liquid from the bottle, and threw it all over her face. If you don't get out of this evil breath, you won't be bullied to death by her in the future. Pandora Gregory was splashed in front of me in public, and she was frightened. She was not psychologically good, and she grabbed Grover Moray's arm, crying pear blossoms with rain. I'm going to call the police. Someone help me call the police. She splashed me. I sneered a few times. I'll splash you with something. Take a little responsibility for talking. I'm spraying you with some toner. You remember to pat it. After a pause, I glared at her. If there's a next time, I'll splash the makeup remover. I was angry, but I knew that my career was over. It's a big deal, and I don't want Grover Murray to do it alone. And the best way to do that is for me to resign. I wrote my resignation letter, quietly stuffed it into his cabinet while he wasn't there, and then hurried off to work. On the way home, my roommate sent a message saying that I was going to spend the night at my boyfriend's house tonight. That's fine. At least one person is clean and pure. Grover Murray sent me several messages, and seeing that I didn't reply, he simply called in. Looking at the ringing phone, I hesitated, not knowing whether to answer it or not. I've already caused him a lot of trouble, and I really don't want to make any more trouble for him. I hung up the phone, then turned off my phone, held a few cans of beer, and sat on the balcony and drank alcohol. I now finally realize that my feelings for Grover Murray are more than just heartwarming, and that I have fallen hopelessly into it. The thought that I might never see him again made my heart sink to the bottom a little bit, and I desperately tried to numb myself with alcohol. Knock knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Drunk, I walked over and opened the door. When I opened the door, I was startled. Standing outside the door was Grover Murray. His chest rose and fell violently, and his face was dejected. When he saw me, his eyes immediately turned red, and as soon as he grabbed my wrist, he stared at me with burning eyes. Amelia, don't leave me, okay? After saying that, before I could come back to my senses, he suddenly leaned down and grabbed my head at the same time, and a crazy kiss blocked my mouth. For a moment, my mind went blank, and the last vestiges of my sanity were completely lost. The kiss lingered for a long time, before he would let me go. My heart was beating like thunder, and I didn't dare to look up at him for a while. Grover Moray's gentle voice came from overhead. I can look for customers when they're gone, but I can't live without you. My heart was pounding out of my chest. But, Grover Murray interrupted me. My mom, I'll explain to her. As for Pandora Gregory, I've let her go. I looked up in amazement, speechless in shock. He chuckled and scratched my nose. She doesn't know. The surveillance at the door of the reception room has a recording function, and she and what she said are recorded. I showed her the video, and it is her best choice to resign. But your mother's. The corners of his lips hooked, and another warm kiss fell, and he whispered in my ear as he kissed. You don't have to worry about her. Rest assured, I won't be overwhelmed by life. I'm only going to be overwhelmed by my sister. I'm gone. Before Grover Murray could find his mother had already looked for me. The next day, his mom asked me out for coffee, and Grover Murray found out and stalked about it. I can't help it. I can only rely on him. He drove me over, and on the way, my phone rang, and I looked at the caller number, and I looked at Grover Murray in embarrassment. Grover Murray glanced down and raised an eyebrow, and a sour smell suddenly wafted through the carriage and the connection. I quickly denied. No, no. He touched his chin and looked at me with a smile. Take it, I'm not a cautious person. I picked up my phone, and Nina Julia's voice rang in my ears. Sister, our leaders have decided to continue working together. Great, thank you. I was relieved. Nina Julia smiled wryly. Actually, you can't thank me. It seems that Grover Murray did it himself. I glanced at Grover Murray, who had an upturned mouth and a sundear look. There was a pause on the phone, and there was a low laugh from Nina Julius. Sister, if you have time, I want to treat you to a meal in the evening. My frightened phone almost fell to the ground, and I quickly refused. No, I already have a boyfriend. After speaking, he hurriedly hung up the phone. Grover Murray touched his nose, and said in a playful tone, I've said it all. I can handle it. How did you do that? Grover Moray's expression was a little sundear. It just so happens that their boss is my former college classmate's mother. I was dumbfounded. Big brother, why didn't you say it earlier? He sighed. I also went to their company to find out. You're going to apologize? Grover Murray snorted arrogantly. No, I'm giving them another chance to work together. Grover Moray's mother booked a cafe in the most luxurious shopping mall in Beijing. A casual piece of clothing, and it is enough for a few months' salary. When she saw Grover Murray appear with me, her face changed instantly. Why are you here too? Grover Murray gave me a tender look and took my hand. I heard you wanted to meet her, so I thought I'd introduce you to my girlfriend. His mother's face quickly turned ugly to the naked eye. Grover Murray, as if he hadn't seen anything, gentlemanly pulled out my chair and waited for me to sit down next to me. His mother stared at the two of us uncertainly, and said coldly, I don't agree with your business. I was stunned. This process is not right. Shouldn't you throw a sum of money on my face, and let me stay away from her son in the future? Grover Murray took my hand and chuckled quietly. Do you remember when I was laughed at by my classmates when my family business failed? When I went to school, and when I was autistic? His mother was stunned, and her eyes were incomprehensible. I couldn't go to the university at that time, because some of my classmates had a business with our family, and when they knew that you were bankrupt, they started laughing at me, and then I changed schools. In the new school, I didn't have any friends, except for a very enthusiastic senior sister. Everyone else didn't care about me when they didn't care about people. I told you about this man before. Do you remember? His mother nodded silently, her gaze drifting inadvertently to me. Grover Murray gently rubbed the back of my hand with a warm palm, and his tone was gentle. Now, I have brought you to you. The way his mother looked at me gradually changed. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly sighed, then picked up her coffee and said to me lightly, the coffee here is delicious. You can taste it. Met his mother. Grover Murray walked out holding my hand, and I had a stomach full of questions for him. You told your mom about me, a long time ago. Grover Moray's mouth twitched. Yes, at that time, at home, I would only laugh when I was chatting with you and playing games. And when she asked me who I was, I told her that I was a very cute senior sister. He paused for a moment and sighed lightly. It's a pity that this very cute senior sister likes someone else in her heart. I pouted, about to reprimand him for turning over old accounts. He suddenly chuckled. But luckily, I finally got to her. I suddenly remembered Pandora Gregory. You and Pandora Gregory aren't boyfriend and girlfriend. How can there be rumors in the company that she is your girlfriend? Grover Murray raised an eyebrow. She likes me, and my mom wants me to be with her because they have a company relationship. Then the last time I bumped into my aunt and beat you, it was also because of her. Well, she's always before my mother, and the wicked Sue first. I sighed. I didn't expect to meet you in the company. He hugged me tightly, looked down and smiled. I didn't even get to you to be my girlfriend first. I pouted. What else you didn't expect? The corners of his mouth curled higher and higher. I didn't expect you to dare to kiss me in front of so many people. This man. I pushed him, but he hugged him tighter. I don't seem to have returned the favor after kissing me in front of so many people. Didn't you kiss? Yesterday. His eye-catching peach blossom eyes were full of temptation that I couldn't resist. I saw his Adam's apple roll a few times, and said to me in a suppressed voice, but I want to, right now. My heart was beating like thunder. I put my arms around his neck, closed my eyes, and took the initiative to say hello to his little mouth intimately. Only this time, I was very sober and knew who I liked. The end.